The first 2026 test was meant to be routine. 3 teams chasing mileage. No pressure. No expectations. But from the very first outlap, something felt different. Hamilton wasn't just fast. He was controlled. Too controlled. McLaren didn't run soft tires, but kept matching times anyway. And Red Bull? They barely made noise. But their sector data told a completely different story. Then came day 5. Low track temperature, minimal wind, and 1 lap from Hamilton, on worn mediums, sent the paddock into silence. Because the stopwatch didn't just say he was ahead. It said something else. Something no one expected this early. That this car, this concept, might already be working. And if that's true, if what we saw was real, then everyone else is already behind. Not everything lined up. And that's where it starts. Barcelona always brings more questions than answers. That's the point of preseason testing. Cars run different fuel loads. Tires vary across programs. Nobody shows their hand. But even with all the noise, patterns usually emerge. This year, that didn't happen. 5 days. 3 compounds. For top teams on track. And still, nothing made sense. Mercedes started strong. Hamilton ran quietly the first few sessions. Medium stints. High fuel. Standard test work. Then McLaren surfaced. Not with speed, but with control. Piastri and Norris both ran within a tenth. Same conditions. Same tire wear. Lap after lap. Ferrari stayed out of view. No push runs. Just race simulations, and even those were conservative. Red Bull, meanwhile, brought limited updates. Low mileage. No performance programs. They weren't chasing times. And yet, the GPS overlays told a different story. Sector data showed Verstappen coasting in high-speed corners. Lifting early. Still going purple on exits. That's what set the tone. Not the times themselves, but how easily some teams got them. And how quiet they stayed afterward. It wasn't the lap times that told the story. It was the way they arrived. Hamilton's final day lap was quick, but it wasn't a headline time. 1 minute and 16.3 seconds, on medium tires, in cold conditions. The paddock didn't react immediately. They'd seen quick runs before. Testing is full of them. But the replay told a different story. No corrections mid-corner. No brake modulation. No lift on exit. The SF-26 looked balanced. Not set up. Built that way. That's what caught the attention of rival engineers. Because that kind of balance doesn't just appear. It's designed. McLaren's consistency added to the tension. Piastri's long-run deltas barely moved across stints. Fuel dropped, the lap times dropped. Tire wear increased, but the car didn't fade. And Red Bull's silence? That was the loudest part of the week. They ran fewer laps than expected. No low fuel attacks. No media engagement. But teams tracking their GPS data noticed something strange. Even when Verstappen lifted early, he still matched sector times. That's not normal. Not unless the car is more efficient than anyone thought possible under these new regs. And if that's the case, if even Red Bull isn't running flat out yet, then the times we've seen might not just be misleading. They might be irrelevant. This isn't just about who's fast. It's about how they're doing it. 2026 was supposed to reset everything. New aero restrictions. New fuel flow limits. New balance targets. The idea was to close the field. Force efficiency. Eliminate loopholes. But what we saw in Barcelona suggests someone found one. It's not illegal. Not yet. But when engineers start whispering load control, you know something's happening beneath the surface. That's where attention turned to suspension geometry. Several teams ran revised front-end designs. Red Bull's camber behavior didn't match their declared setup. Mercedes had rear-end compliance no one could explain. Ferrari? No visible trickery. But the car didn't dive under braking, even when loaded into long corners like turn 3. That's not typical. That's structural. So either these teams are hiding active elements, or someone has reinterpreted the regs around damping and rebound more aggressively than expected. And the FIA? They haven't commented. Not on vertical stiffness. Not on lateral balance deviations. That silence is telling. Because in the past, when teams found gray areas early, the governing body usually responded quickly. But this time, nothing. No clarifications. No technical directives. Which raises a harder question. What if the FIA doesn't fully understand what's happening yet? The lap times made headlines. The silence made people nervous. After 5 days of testing, not a single team released a full run plan. No tire strategy disclosures. No fuel declarations. No technical bulletins from the FIA. That's not normal. Even in an era of secrecy, there's usually noise. But this time, nothing. Ferrari avoided specifics. They praised reliability, but skipped over performance details. McLaren did interviews, but never once broke down sector comparisons. Red Bull? Completely silent. No comments from Verstappen. No data from the pit wall. And yet, they logged every lap they needed, right down to the millisecond. That's when observers started comparing patterns. Because some cars weren't just fast. They were efficient. Too efficient. Minimum tire degradation. Stable rear-end balance under fuel drop. Clean vertical compliance in fast corners. And none of it matched what they said publicly. Drivers were unusually careful with their language. Hamilton mentioned encouraging feedback. Piastri said the car felt honest. Verstappen only gave 6 words. It's doing what we expected. That's it. Nothing more. No emotion. No relief. Which leaves one explanation. They've all found something. But no one's willing to say what. Not until the first race forces them to show it. If what we saw is real, the grid might already be splitting in 2. Preseason is never final. But it always leaves traces. And this year, those traces feel heavier. Because if Ferrari's SF26 can balance under load, on worn mediums, they're not just in the fight. They're ready now. If McLaren can keep running identical lap deltas, with 2 drivers, across 2 programs, they've solved consistency. And if Red Bull can stay within a tenth, while visibly backing off, then they might still be ahead, by more than anyone wants to admit. Bahrain will expose more. Hotter tarmac, longer corners, tire stress, real race pressure. That's where we'll see which balance holds, and which ones fall apart. But the early signs suggest something deeper. This might not be a 3-way fight. It might be 2 layers. One tier of teams with predictable cars, low degradation, clear feedback, stable platforms, and a second group, still reacting, still chasing balance, still changing ride height lap to lap. That gap won't close easily, especially under the 2026 regs, where in-season development is limited, and simulation data is already locked in. So every lap lost now is a problem that compounds by mid-season, which means what we saw in Barcelona might not just shape Bahrain. It could shape the next 22 races, and maybe the next 2 years. The numbers are in, but the story hasn't started. As the garages packed up in Barcelona, no one looked satisfied. Not Ferrari, not McLaren, not even Red Bull. Because the truth isn't in the timesheets. It's in the tone. And the tone? It wasn't confident. It was quiet. Teams weren't celebrating. They were calculating. Every engineer knows what's coming next. A full race weekend. Real tire strategy. Race fuel. No hiding. That's where you see who's bluffing. And who isn't. But here's the problem. What if no one was bluffing? What if what we saw wasn't gamesmanship, but the real hierarchy forming already? What if Hamilton's lap wasn't a teaser, but a warning? What if Red Bull's silence wasn't strategy, but confidence? And what if McLaren's balance isn't just a preseason fluke, but a sign they've finally arrived? The truth is, we still don't know. Because no one is talking. And until Bahrain, they don't have to. But if the gaps open again under floodlights, if the patterns repeat, then we may look back at Barcelona, not as a test session, but as a first glimpse into a very different championship, one that's already begun, before the lights even went out.